Every artist has stared at a blank canvas at one point or another. Yeah, this just isn't working for me. They've been there no matter the skill level, unsure of what that next stroke is gonna be. This is the cycle of professional development, learning the craft, finding your unique artistic voice, and shaping a portfolio that is not just about skill. It tells the story of who you are as an artist and a creative. Whether you're refining the fundamentals, pushing through creative blocks, or preparing to step into the industry. Understanding these key phases can mean the difference between a scattered pursuit and a focused, thriving career. So today we're getting into professional development, how you can refine projects, how you can develop your artistic voice, and build appeal through your work. We're going to look at lots of examples and just talk some shop. Let's get into this. Now, before we get into the meat of building a portfolio and the structure and the content of that, there is something very important I would like to stress up front here. I've mentioned in many previous parts and many versions of this video before, hey, you should do this. Hey, you should do this. Have this sort of content here. This is good. This is better. This is okay, right? Like a lot of that sort of content. But I feel that it's worth saying, having a clear vision trumps all of that. Having a clear vision with your work absolutely can transcend having certain structural requirements and checkbox items contained within. Having a clear vision as a creator, as an artist in 2025, just may be one of the most important single things we could potentially have going for us. Tim McBurney, another great art YouTuber that I love, he talks a lot about this lately. He's called it amplifying your signal. So you could think of it this way. It's your artistic vision plus what you're really passionate about. You want to kind of put those together, and that's going to amplify your signal. Be you times two. It's A, doing what you love, and B, doing what you're really good at. So part of this, of course, is creating work that has a certain level of appeal, but more importantly, this shows that your artwork reflects what you really love to do. No, not that. So then when it comes to portfolio building, then you could start to list out and start to plan what companies may align with this vision. And the reason that we're creating these projects, are not only just to improve and to expand our skill sets, but it's to ultimately pitch what we can do as a creative service to potential clients if you are in fact heading down that road. If you're not heading down that road, you just do projects just for the sake of improvement and of course just to do what you love, like world building. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to feel confident about what you're working on and what you've created if you've enjoyed it, if you're already getting pretty good at it, and you want to communicate this to clients. You want to frame it as, hey, this is what I love doing, this is what I did here. I can see a lot of work in your catalog or in your portfolio of games or movies that you've done like this. I would be the perfect person to be of service for you. I understand, this is what you'd want to pitch to them, is that you understand what their needs are and that you're already really good and love them. Understanding art styles, appeal, and design theory can carry you a long way. This ensures that your work is not just a collection of randomly selected pieces that reflect technical skill alone. There's plenty of people out there nowadays that are plenty technically proficient. So now it comes as a question for a lot of us creators, hey, what can we really do to amplify our personality? What can we do to show the world what we're good at and what we love? This is a tough subject, right? Creatively, of course, we're speaking about a lot of abstract subjects, a lot of subjective subjects. So in this example here, I grabbed some very popular artists online and I'm just trying to think and I'm reflecting to myself, what is appealing that, millions, hundreds of thousands of people follow these particular artists? For me, I just simply narrowed it down to like expressive, subtle storytelling. It could be the raw technique. the stylization itself, the shape design, the use of color, right? It's the combination of things that determine these particular style sets and the aesthetics. Of course, if the artist is very, open, very has a very great personality and very, connectable, right? We're seeking connections as an audience often enough with these artists. And I think these are all just really great examples of this. You'll have to let me know below some of your favorite artists that you find really appealing. Now, I know I just talked a lot about, having a creative vision. Give me some examples of some artists that you feel has, a good kind of creative vision. So basically, I just set up a quick little board here just to show some artists I feel have a really good, strong sense of a creative vision. All these are just ripped straight from Instagram, but you can kind of see each column here by the work. Every set has a very distinct personality, a very specific sort of style. How they're utilizing color, how they're utilizing, texture, pattern, rhythm. These just exude that level of consistency in how they create, how they interpret the world. That's what having a vision is. It's like your interpretation of reality, how you process things, and then of course how you're saying that, through your art itself. And I just thought all of these were like really great examples of that. This is not easy. This is something I'm still working on myself all the time. It's something that I help try to coach a lot of my students in doing. A strong vision is built through experimentation and through iteration. The more you create, the more patterns emerge, right, amongst your interests and amongst the aesthetics that you're, imbuing into your art. This is something I constantly reflect upon with my own designs and my illustrations. I do think it's important to not chase trends. Focus, of course, on what excites you, what you find passionate about it, even if it feels slightly unconventional. Over time, these choices will define our artistic identity, which, again, this is about playing the long game. It's about establishing not only a brand identity for yourself, but an aesthetic that really defines you and your art, which is hard to force. And I feel like just kind of grinding out the reps, just creating lots and lots of work, some good, some will be bad, that will start to help find these patterns and your interests will start to emerge. That's what will start to define the patterns, the themes, the color choices, the way you use line, form, and volume, right? How you interpret these basic building blocks, these fundamentals of art and design will decide the aesthetics of your work. More importantly, give yourself permission to explore. And this is the catch, without needing everything to be perfect. Creative vision isn't something you can find overnight. It's something that you constantly build over time by creating, by analyzing, and by refining your overall ideas. So your creative vision may not be complete. It may be something that's always evolving. But once you kind of understand a few core premises of what that vision may be, then you can start to understand how you may set up a project. This image started nothing more than a doodle, just me having fun with the study. It's not a masterpiece or part of a larger, more complex project. But to me, that doesn't make it any less valuable. While my ArtStation features plenty of larger, more in-depth projects, I found that work like this often is what catches the attention of my potential clients. Different clients seek different qualities in an artist, and sometimes these smaller explorations resonate more than the highly polished pieces. And this is just how I get my reps in, how I refine my artistic instincts. I'll often create even multiple images from a single reference, like I did with this one. I have, in addition, a lighter, more playful variation. These exercises help me sharpen my skills and process while setting smaller, more focused goals. For instance, I use key descriptive words to drive the mood and the tone for each version. One was built around harrowing, bleak, and suspenseful themes, while the other embodied mystery, playfulness, and a sense of wonder. Now, next up on my list is basically the project cycle. This is basically something you'd roll into when you're doing that more very strategic sets of portfolio building, right? Portfolios should be curated, they should be planned, they're not just a random collection of images. But this is the most general form of what this cycle could look like, right? So this is where you basically outline your own sort of concept, and then you build very specific mood and inspiration boards that show your influence and maybe show a little bit of the research you've done in that market. And then you basically get into the production process. This is where, of course, you're creating. And then, if that's working out from a design perspective, for me personally, then I like to get into the design and illustration development, where I basically take those ideas that I started sketching out, that I started laying out, that I started planning, and take them to a more refined and professional finish of a level, right? Think of like a full concept sketch versus something a bit more finished. And then basically getting feedback and revisions, asking peers, dropping them in the Discords. We got an awesome Discord, the Brush Sauce one linked below. The Patreon one is a bit better. But yeah, like any one that you can kind of trust, any kind of close community to get feedback, to keep pushing that idea further is great. So let's look at how you can determine the scale and scope of that project by looking at some of these examples. Now, I want to show just a few little examples of portfolios here that I've kind of collected to figure out where you guys might want to jump in. So I have basically entry-level ones, which are a great place to start. You don't need a massive sort of skill set at that point. The more the intermediate level, where things are a little bit bigger, require a little bit more software knowledge on a technical level to understand, and then basically more senior level projects. So let's just give you a quick rundown of this here today. So like this is a great example of a beginner level project here from Ian Ho, which is, I believe he's now a lead at Riots. Right, like this is great stuff because it's very referenceable, taking the idea of like a 7-Eleven, putting a fun spin on it, a fun theme, right? He's putting it in the snow, it's on a mobile sort of track unit, and it's delivering the snacks, right? Everything here is believable, it's at human scale, and it is showing his ability to solve problems, right? So lots of little technical sketches. Again, minimally, this is all you would need, is your ability to draw, set up a few basic parameters, and gather reference. But this is an excellent place to start as a beginner if you're looking to build your first portfolio. Something on a more intermediate level, again, is like a little bit more complex. This is another great example, which I just grabbed from ArtStation, right? SJJAM. See, it's a little bit broader in scope. It's quite a bit bigger. It's a little more fantastical. Again, it's not as easy to reference. You have to take a good understanding of existing design languages and how to construct and build form at a believable sense, and basically get everything to fit and flow together. Of course, this has got like a much nicer mastery over just like painting or light and design. Composition plays a lot more bigger important. It's exponentially quite a bit more difficult to do a project of this scale and of this size compared to the last one there with Ian's. And then, as a third level one, here's a former student, Nikita, right? Did really cool things in one of my classes back in the day, but he does like really big, really complex projects now. And you can kind of see like, for like at a senior level, like these just take loads of time, practice, and planning, and you already do need to understand whatever software you're utilizing to be able to build something innately complex. But in a bigger kind of project like this, you're basically not building one kit like you might in a beginner or intermediate level project, but you're building multiple kits, multiple building kits, multiple cranes and props, and you're basically putting them all together, at a very high-end level with your ideas. These things, you could expect them to take anywhere from like 3 to 6 months to fully get in there and execute. With the size of some of these, they take a long time, and again, because of their difficulty, I don't recommend beginner level kind of students to get in there and tackle some of those. So we've briefly mentioned the value of having an artistic vision, how you might structure and set up a project scope based on your goals, the level of time you want to commit, and of course the difficulty that matches your experience level. What's next? Well, in previous parts I have mentioned, yes, having a specialization, having a bit of a focus with that vision, of course, can go a long way. So, of course, in one camp, maybe you want to structure your entertainment design portfolio as having 70% environments, 30% props, or you're on the other side of the table with 70% characters, 30% props, again, depending on what your interests are. But what else do we really need to be mindful of and, of course, to implement, as we go forward with this sort of plan? This, of course, circles around the old topic of specialist versus a generalist, right? One of the most largest portfolio pitfalls that I see are those portfolios that are not specific or targeted enough to a specific place or type of work. They're a little bit of everything. They just have one of everything. They look like a collection of assignments or a checkbox list of ideas that are more fragmented that just focus on the technical skill. This used to be fine like 5 years ago, but again, things are a little more competitive nowadays. So I made this little pyramid here, and I just want to go from the top all the way down to the bottom, which would be the most important in my opinion, as to like what you can think of when you kind of consider building a project for yourself, right? The first, of course, is strong fundamentals. This goes without say. You should be able to draw. You should be able to know composition, how to construct forms, how to shade, how to render. You don't have to be a master of all these things, but having a good sense of those fundamentals reflected in your work, I think, is a given. So let's start with that. Now, as I've just mentioned, embrace your unique voice. This is very important as it can set us apart. It can give us an opportunity to add a lot of personality and self-interest into our work. Now, if you can match this or pair this with your fundamentals and maybe show that your work demonstrates that you have problem-solving skills, this is a really good sweet spot. So part of this is also paired with showing your process. In the modern age, with lots of AI flooding the market and people just stealing things and uploading lots of stuff, showing your process is not just about, hey, here's my collection of sketches on an idea, but it's your opportunity to show potential clients how you think, how you solve those problems, and how you can be utilized at various different stages in the creative process. It's of course also going to show how consistent you are, and it's great for when you do have a sit-down sort of interview. You can talk and walk clients through how you solve problems and how you can meet their needs, which builds upon the thing below that, right? Consistency matters. Clients want a safe bet. They don't like spending money to take chances. You don't want to be flagged as a high-risk sort of freelancer or employee, right? So having consistency among your work, among your projects, can go a long way. Now, this doesn't say like you just need to have one style or one type of art or picture in your portfolio. I'm not necessarily saying that. What I'm really trying to say, consistency matters in regards to like the quality, right? Which is among everything, right? Probably the most important thing at that foundation. Having good, consistent, quality work that demonstrates you're able to adapt or that you can solve problems, that you have a creative vision, right? All these things. These are what really works in a portfolio environment in 2025 when it comes to getting work out there. Now, these are slightly interchangeable. The different artists are going to approach these differently. This isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all scenario. And I'm not going to say and overpromise and guarantee all of you guys out there watching this that, like, okay, if you just have all these things, that it's just going to magically make you employable. Not necessarily at all. What I found that has worked over time is just creating quality work and getting it out there. Meet with people, connect with people, get your work in front of as many people as they can. Because these are two things, right, that we have control over. We have control over the quality of our work, and we have control over how much we are marketing that, right? How much we are putting that out there. There's too many other things that are out of our control, so we don't want to waste time necessarily worrying about all those components. And of course, that's what we're going to be covering in the next video, is more on networking. So the questions you might want to ask, and you guys could tell me below because I'm always curious, is like, and that is, what is your strength? What is your potential advantage? What can you leverage in your body of work? Is it storytelling? Is it line? Is it your ability to portray color and light? Is it efficiency? Can you come up with lots of ideas very quickly? There's lots of things to consider here. So just as a brief little example of what you might want to do, this is the stuff I often share with the Patreons in the Discord. Is just like project templates that are just there for kind of feeding ideas for students that are just building technique and getting in the reps. I like to mix things like themes, and this is for a character design one, class types, time periods, and if you want to do more anthropomorphic characters, something like animal species. So right, you just kind of mix and match from the columns. So for example here, right, the spice sorcerers, you got paprika, cinnamon, and saffron, right? They all have their own specific characteristics, whether they're a fiery rogue, this guardian, or, an elusive mystic ethereal figure, right? But like you stick that in something like the Byzantine era with these sorcerers that draw power from household spices, hidden in Constantinople's markets. They're arcane practitioners. So like, it's just fun way to kind of brew and stew up ideas that you can use as foundations for your own self-interest. So I love building templates. I have one, of course, for environment designs, which comes up with just different themes, different buildings and functionalities. Again, lists of architectural styles, time periods. The possibilities are endless, and you never know where a set of ideas can build and really tap into your own imagination and your own sense of curiosity. Guys, we're going to wrap this segment of the overall lesson up here. Let me know what you think below. I hope you got something out of this. Remember, it's really about the creative vision. It's about choosing projects that reflect who you are, what you like, that are a comparable size for the difficulty level that you want to achieve. And of course, that this is not a one-size-fits-all scenario, as art itself is very complex. Everybody I speak to that is successful have got there through a very sort of different path. But if it's anything that I do know that I do want to remind you guys now is that, of course, just focus on things that you can control. Don't worry a lot about the external factors that are happening out there. Yes, the entertainment industry is going through a very tough time, but these are all skills. This kind of work that you build, they could also be used to foster your own creative endeavors. You could start your own animations. You could start your own game studios. Tools. The barrier for entry is more accessible now for the everyman, for the every kind of creator, more than ever. So let's, of course, keep on creating together, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.